Ancient Egyptian transportation. Because the Nile flows the length of the country, boats and ships were the most important means of transport in Egypt since ancient times to the Muslim era. Ships are shown in the tables from the Naqada period, about 4000 to 3100 BC, and by the end of the Old Kingdom, wooden models of ships were often placed in tombs. These models reflect the many types of boats the ancient Egyptians designed for different purposes. Red rafts were made for hunting in the marshes. Papyrus boats were used by royalty for either daily activities or religious ceremonies. Large wooden boats were used to transport heavy goods and military purposes. During the Greco-Roman era, the Ptolemies built a large navy. Ptolemaic ships were made in a variety of styles known throughout the Hellenistic world. The Berylides formed an important type of naval vessels. Vessels called kerkeros were used for both naval and commercial purposes, while a smaller type of warship was called lembos. Lembos these were closer to a boat and have been used to launch quick strikes. The most important types of merchant vessels was the largest ship called the corvette, who sailed around the Mediterranean in British Columbia the 1st and 2nd centuries until the caiba became more frequent. Shipbuilding is also important for Muslims during the Muslim era. They established many shipbuilding centers along the Nile, among them Al-Fustat, Qulzim, Alexandria, and Tanis. Alexandria was a major port, and its ships carrying goods from Ethiopia, India, China, and all ports of the Mediterranean Sea. In the Fatimid era, Egypt became one of the most powerful navy. For distances much shorter than would be traveled by boat, sedan chairs were the preferred mode of transportation in the Old Kingdom and Middle for the royal class. Sedan chairs seem to have disappeared after these periods. The officer would be sitting with the knees drawn to chest, holding a fan. The chairs usually had a thick cushion for comfort and file for support. The chairs rested on two long poles, including two or more servants lifted to carry the chair. Domestic animals such as donkeys and mules were the charge carriers most common in ancient Egypt and were used for agriculture. The donkeys were domesticated in the 4th millennium BC and were used almost exclusively for land travel up to the Persian period. The horses were brought to Egypt by the Hyksos invading army at the end of the Middle Kingdom. Horses were generally used to pull two-wheeled chariots rather than mounted. In the New Kingdom, Egyptians began horse breeding, and horses belonged to the military elite and the ruling class. Occasional and infrequent mention of camel or dromedary hump may be encountered as part of the early dynastic period, but not before the foreign conquerors of Assyrians, Persians, and Alexander the Great were these animals brought in more in Egypt. By the Ptolemaic period, camels were used as the main animals for transportation across the desert.